All right, so Fauci, right? Could he actually end up, like, behind bars?
Jail time for Fauci.
Yeah, it's a big question everyone's asking. We're going deep on this. Take a look at all these allegations against him.
Ah, Fauci. Well, it's really a story about so much more than just him, isn't it? It's like this whole collision of science and politics and public health. And it's a prime example of how those things can get all mixed up, right? Where agendas can kind of overshadow the actual science and make it hard for folks to figure out what to believe.
It's confusing for sure.
Totally.
Okay, so the big accusation is that he, misled Congress about how COVID started.
Right, misled Congress, specifically about this whole lab leak theory, which, by the way, is still a super controversial idea.
Yeah, the idea that the virus didn't come from nature, but it, like, escaped from a lab.
Right, exactly. And that's where the Wuhan Lab in China comes in.
Okay, so Wuhan, what does Fauci have to do with all of this?
So conservative lawmakers are claiming that Fauci essentially lied about the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, funding this research, this gain-of-function research, at that very lab in Wuhan.
Gain of function. So is that like,
It's kind of like think about it as manipulating viruses. Sometimes you're actually making them like more dangerous in a lab setting to try to understand how they could potentially cause outbreaks.
oh, wow. Okay, that sounds pretty intense.
It is, and the lawmakers are using emails and stuff from those congressional hearings as evidence that there might have been a cover-up.
A cover-up, like he knew this was going on.
Yeah, their argument is that maybe he prioritized, politics over being transparent and that it could have actually made the pandemic worse.
So, I mean, are these accusations going to stick? What happens now?
Well, at least two states, those with Republican-led governments, have actually launched investigations.
Really?
Yep. They're demanding to see all sorts of documents, and some are even threatening criminal charges.
So you're saying there is a chance Fauci could end up in jail?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility that's out there, right? But honestly, legal experts are saying it's pretty unlikely.
Unlikely. Why is that?
Well, because to actually prove that he intentionally misled Congress, you'd have to like definitively show that he knew he was lying.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's a really tough thing to do, like super high legal bar to clear, especially when you're dealing with stuff like emails, which is circumstantial evidence.
Right. So just because maybe his statements don't totally line up, that doesn't automatically make him guilty.
Exactly.
Okay, so how's Fauci responding to all this? I mean, he can't just be ignoring it, right?
Oh, he's not ignoring it. He's calling these allegations completely preposterous, even dangerous.
Wow.
Yeah, preposterous and dangerous. And he's adamant that all the research, everything the NIH funded, followed all the guidelines, and he still maintains that the lab leak theory just hasn't been proven.
I mean, he has been under scrutiny like this whole time, since the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, absolutely. Constant scrutiny.
And he's been dragged in front of Congress so many times, right? Like over 100 times, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's testifies over 100 times, and his supporters are basically saying that this is all just a politically motivated attack.
It's an election year, right?
Exactly. It's an election year, which makes it all the more suspicious to them.
This whole thing just feels so much bigger than just Fauci. It's like a stand-in for all these bigger issues we're grappling with as a society.
Oh, totally. I completely agree.
It's about, like, who's accountable for the pandemic and the whole, like, free speech debate and who gets to control the story of what happened, right?
100%. Like, it's about our trust in science and institutions and how we deal with this kind of information that can be really complex and, a bit scary. I've talked to scientists who are feeling really disillusioned by all this.
Really?
Yeah, they're worried that this kind of intense scrutiny is going to discourage talented people from going into public health.
Wow, that's a good point.
I mean, if you're a brilliant young scientist and you see this happening, are you going to want to dedicate your life to this field?
Probably not. I mean, it does seem like the bigger problem is this erosion of trust in institutions. And in this case, it's happening to science.
Exactly. And then you add in social media where misinformation spreads like wildfire. It creates this perfect environment for conspiracy theories. And then it's even harder to have like reasonable conversations about science and health.
So, bottom line, do you think Fauci will actually go to jail?
Honestly, most people who analyze this stuff say probably not.
Probably not.
But these investigations, they keep this whole story alive, right?
Yeah, they do.
And all the controversies that come with it.
Right. It's a mess.
It's a big, complicated mess.
It really is. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. But I think for our listeners, this is a chance to think about what all this means for us as a society. Can we have productive conversations about science, especially when things are so politically charged? That's the bigger question, isn't it?
It is, and it's a question we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for our deep dive today. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.